guys, it's Joey. So this video is going to be called Morrigan Respect and Relationships. Basically relationship building with the Morrigan. So before I start the video, there's going to be 5 minutes or so of waffle while I catch up with everybody. So if you really don't want to hear me waffle, skip about 5 minutes and I'll probably be getting into the video itself. Hopefully. Apologies for me drinking water throughout. We're in hay fever season now, and if you've been with me for any time, then you know I suffer in the summer. So first to catch up, I know there've been a lack of videos lately, I'm sorry. Basically there's been hay fever and I've been very busy with the store and other bits and pieces, trying to write again. And as well, there's been a lot of negativity on YouTube lately and I've been not feeling the vibe of wanting to make videos and things, but I'm gonna try and get back to regular video building apparently. When I get hot and hay fever, this happens to my head as well, which doesn't help my video building. So firstly, to catch up, I know that people have asked if I'm going to start doing a few more Celtic callings, and I will. Right, the thing about the Celtic calling videos is that they require a little bit more time than you would think, because you have to make sure you have all your research available, all your notes available, you have to make sure you know what you're talking about, and then you have to be forming thoughts and discussion points around. My hair is driving me nuts. That's not what we'd want discussion points around, but there you go. It's humid and warm and my hair is doing the humid bunny thing. Right, okay, so I am looking at doing some more Celtic calling videos. I'm behind in like all the Ogham ones. I owe Hawthorne a meditation, and I know, and I'm on it, and it won't be forever, I hope. So there's all that, and I hope everybody had a wonderful solstice. I didn't get to wish people a solstice properly for a number of reasons. My sister got engaged. Which is wonderful. So it's been busy and prosperous and blessed. So I got a couple of really awesome bargains on summer solstice as well, which you already know if you're on Facebook, but I thought I would quickly pop them into the start of this video because it's only 2 things, so it's not really worth a haul video. Which people may or may not care about. Again, if you don't care about it, fast forward the first 5 minutes. So the first thing is this incredible amethyst. You see the size of this thing? This was £7. I found it for £7. Now in the UK, quite frequently the tiny little ones cost £4 to £5. So something this size normally goes for 20, 25 plus, because it's huge. I don't really have a point of reference other than me, but you know. So there you go, and it's a very beautiful piece, and I've been using her for some imbuing work already, and it works really well. So £7 on the summer solstice was amazing. But the main bargain of the day was this. This is a lovely glass corked bottle, a big corked bottle again, and it has this sort of greyed effect, and it came with a key. The key was tied around here with that sort of, I don't know if it's taffeta or what, but it was, you know, the rope. And I got keen on that, so I took the rope off. But, you know, that was 10p. That bottle was 10p. And my nebula stone came today, and I'm holding her, and I'm going to be working with her. I'm super excited. It's a nebula stone from Mexico. Right. So, Morrigan Respect and Relationship Building. Originally I was going to have this video as a very thought out pre-planned video, and I was originally going to do it a couple of weeks ago based off the back of a couple of things I was looking at and I wasn't very impressed with it. But I was kind of a little bit too agitated with I will still talk about it, but at the time 2 weeks ago I was a little bit agitated with it, and I thought, you know, if I do a video it's going to get angry. And whereas passionate is good, angry is probably not. with regards to this subject anyway, with regards to talking about respect for the Morrigan and relationship building with the Morrigan, although many of these points can be applied to all gods and goddesses, as well as life, probably. You know, you can apply them in a very general sense. You can apply them to people. There you go. I've decided instead that I'm going to just talk as if I was talking to somebody about it, and let spirit guide me, let my soul guide me, speak as I find, and just, you know, allow it to go. So I've got my nebula stone, I've got my antler on, I've got Morrigan bits and pieces surrounding me. Let's go for it. So the original thing that was bothering me that I saw, and I've seen it a few times, is it was basically a spell shared on Facebook as an invocation to the Morrigan to get the Morrigan to show up and protect your home. The article called her a goddess of war and death, and that was it. And it was Morrigan is a goddess of war and death. Call her to protect your home, and here's an invocation. I don't remember, I don't think they even touched upon her being a Celtic goddess, and then it was literally call the Morrigan up, dial a Morrigan, get her to protect your house. Here's a spell. Now, if the Morrigan showed up, I'd be afraid. to be perfectly honest with you, if she showed up for that sort of thing, I'd be afraid. There was just no respect in this invocational thing that was getting shared around. It was even shared on my Morrigan page, and I was a little bit agitated by that. I was like, I mean, in some ways it's not as bad because they presume a relationship with the Morrigan with people who are following Morrigan pages like that, but in other ways that's even worse because they shouldn't be promoting that thing, sort of thing. I'm getting irate, breathe. So people at first didn't really understand why it was agitating me, and I was saying, well, it shows a complete and utter lack of respect for the goddess Morrigan. The goddess Morrigan is not somebody whom you approach first and foremost. I've said this before and I will say it again. The Morrigan chooses her sons and daughters. She is very adamant on this point, and it is my experience that if she's decided to show up, she will show up. It's not the sort of goddess that you invoke for household protection. I wouldn't really say that you should be invoking any goddess or god that you don't have a relationship with in order to protect your home. You know, there are ways within witchcraft or, you know, spell work and things without invoking a god and goddess for home protection. But this article, it didn't give any breadth, it didn't give any depth, it didn't give any sense of who the Morrigan is, it didn't give any caution to who the Morrigan is, you know, and it implied that you could dial a goddess and get her to do your will, and there was no talk of offerings, no talk of thanks, no talk of building a relationship, no talk of respect. It was just literally, well, self-service, basically. And that's a point which I think needs to be addressed in this video. The idea of self-service when it comes to relationships with deity with absolutely no respect and no relationship building, like expecting gods and goddesses to listen to you because what? I don't know. Again, you can apply this to a lot of different deities and building relationships with them. Even, you know, even devas and plant spirits and things of that nature, even crystals. There should be this effort, this energy work that you put in to build a relationship with the Morrigan. Now, I have an ongoing relationship with the Morrigan, and she is my mother, and I love her to bits. I could cry saying that right now because I'm not going to cry on video because I do. I love her and she's changed my life. So believe me when I tell you that I would not call the Morrigan up and ask her to do a barrier spell for me. Apart from anything, she'd be like, you can do that yourself, what are you doing? And I'd be, you know, I wouldn't do that anyway, because for me, your relationship with your deity isn't necessarily about the day-to-day basic witchcraft that you should be able to do by yourself. Now, that's not to say that in the process of setting something up you might not call on your gods and goddesses when you were creating something, for example. So say you were creating your own barrier powder. I do this all the time, I sell it, and it's amazing stuff. And I will, you know, if I want to really key into those energies, and I'm doing it in the sight and sign of my goddess, because my crafting is part of the process in which I express my personal witchcraft in order to be a personal expression of whom I am and putting my energy into something and honouring my goddess as I'm doing so, because that's a part of who I am as a witch. Then I will call up the Morrigan to bear witness. And if I'm doing something where I'm crafting something with the Morrigan specifically in mind, like it's one of her products that I create or use, or both, in fact both, with it being Morrigan products, then I will dedicate it to her, and she, if she chooses, may well be present for that. And quite frequently she is, and I've taken photographs, and it's, you will see her face in it and things. They're on Facebook if you want to go look. And that to me is in accordance with the proper relationship that has been built, rather than, hey Morrigan, pull, come protect my home. Now, if the Morrigan so chooses to add a layer of protection to her children's well-being, then she'll do it without you asking. You know, you may call on the Morrigan in times of peril, when you're afraid, when you're in a dangerous, or feel in a dangerous situation. You may call on your god and goddess to protect you. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Joey moving about, is need, dire need. And asking for protection under those circumstances is a completely different thing to calling her up out of the blue to protect your house from whatever. And I think the difference there is really about the balance of need and respect, because when you are calling on your god and goddess in times of when you need them to help you, that's the highest form of respect and humbling yourself before your deity, because you need them, because you sort of put yourself in their hands when you feel lost or lonely or alone or afraid. And I do that. And you know, when I'm going to cry again, what's the matter with me? Mother's around. That's what's the matter with me. Sorry, I cry quite frequently when she's about. I just can't help myself. She's calling me a pussy now, basically. Thanks. It's honour. It's my way of honouring. It's sacred. She's pulling. She's messing with me. Right. Okay. But in that respect, in that regard, basically, it's putting yourself in the hands of your deity. It's trusting in them. It's the belief in them, and it's that divine relationship. It's that connection, that bond that you have already built with your deity. And usually, thinking about it, if you've had a very dangerous situation and a god or goddess comes and helps you in that particular instance, then that can be the beginning of a relationship as well. But regardless, it's sort of a measure of being humble in a way, because it's I have this need and I trust you with it. I trust you with myself. I trust you with my safety, and I trust you to guide me when I'm lost. Now that's a sacred pact, a sacred union, if you like, of trust between you and your deity, Morrigan in my case. That's not the same thing as this invocation to get the Morrigan to protect my home and run around the barrier screaming death cries so that the postman falls over dead or something. I don't know. I don't understand why you would do it at all. Now, Morrigan has a sacred relationship with land, okay? She is of the land, which a lot of people don't fully understand until they start researching and reading around the subject. And if that had been brought up, that would have, in this invocation thing, that might have made a little bit more sense to me. It wasn't mentioned. It was literally Morrigan is a goddess of war and death. It was one line. But even so, the Morrigan is intimately tied to the land, and there's been suggestion that she's older than the Irish Celtic gods, that she was actually in the land before the Tuatha Dé Danann. If I'm pronouncing things wrong today, I apologise, hay fever and everything. And that she has Indo-European roots and she's primal. And I've discussed that before in other videos, and I believe it 100%. So her being very intimately tied to the land is very much about the entrusting people with the governorship of land and taking out those who no longer respect and honour their land and who don't lead their people well. Like, she has the ability to replace kings who have become corrupted or old and aren't doing their job properly with a new younger king. And that's heavy in the mythos, particularly in the Christianized Arthurian legends, which are based on Celtic lore. So within that frame of reference, it would be your sacred duty to protect your own home, to craft the witchy items that you needed, or to incorporate or get the bits and pieces you needed to protect your home and work and weave them into your stuff, and to take care of business yourself, basically, however you chose to do it. And there are multiple ways of choosing to protect your home, you know, and it all really depends upon who you are as a witch and your energies and what works for you. If you're doing energy work, if you're doing energy cleansing, if you're doing physical cleansing, with, be it, you know, on a mundane level like cleaning your home, and whether it be on a spiritual, vibrational level with crystals and smudges and sprays if you can't use smoke, and so on and so forth. All of those things are basically your personal responsibility to know, to learn what works best for you and to apply them in your day-to-day witchery, or whatever it be. If you don't want to, what it be? Oh my god, I sound like Blackadder. That it be. That it is! Sorry. Right, Blackadder moment in the middle of my video. There you go. You're very welcome. Yes, why? Be it protective amulets, be it... I mean, I have a Rowan charm over there with the red thread. I have crystals, I have all sorts, and I shift and change it up depending on how I feel, and I take care of it myself. I wouldn't be asking the Morrigan to do it, because she's a goddess, for goodness sake. I mean, it seems so, I don't understand it, because it's just, I just thought it was hugely disrespectful to this particular thing, because it's not the concern of a goddess to make sure you know your path. It's your personal responsibility to be working on your path, and in that path you should be respecting the god and goddess, or gods and goddesses, of whom you're in contact with, or sworn to, or working with. And that building of a relationship is your personal responsibility as well. And I don't mind anybody who comes to me and asks me questions about, you know, do I think the Morrigan could be speaking to them. I understand that a lot of people who are new to this are unsure, and when I started out, I mean, I didn't have any doubt about the goddess Morrigan. She wasn't somebody whom I'd ever considered prior to her showing up, and I think that worked in my favour in a lot of ways, because I wasn't afraid, and a lot of people around me were a bit like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, I'm sure that's it. I asked, and there she was, and it's actually, my whole life had been building up to it. There'd been signs throughout the years that I wasn't aware of at the time, until I looked back and had my aha. Sorry, that's hay fever and things, I get short of breath with it. Had my aha moment. And that is kind of, it is really integral to the relationship with a goddess like the Morrigan. If she's decided that you're hers, or that she's going to work with you, which are two completely different things, you will be sure of it. I'm going to say she's not subtle once she's decided she wants something, but for a lot of ways, a lot of my life, she was pretty subtle, until I was ready to know who she was and asked. So it was very much about hints and things throughout my life, and I'm trying to think of a few off the bat. Right, how I feel about Samhain is one of them, and Samhain is actually her festival. It's a lot of crone goddesses festival as well, but it's her big sexy festival. Her and Dagda. Rivers, baby. But that's how I'd always felt about Samhain, you know. I was like, it's sexy. It's the most sexy festival. I love it. And I was like, I didn't really fully understand that, because I was a bit like, is that a bit macabre? Is that a bit weird that I feel that way about it? And I love it, and I love decorating, and I get excited. It's not just very, very solemn to me. It's exciting. It's va-va-voom. It's grr, baby. Now you've got Austin Powers in the middle of the video as well. It's going to be one of those days. And that's her, because she has that big sexy celebration around Samhain, and because it's the intimacies of life and death and things. So that's one of the things, and I'd always felt that way about Halloween from being not very old. I didn't care that much about Yule, Christmas, as I was growing up, as much as I did Samhain. And then there were other hints closer to the time, the Orthoceras, which, by the way, there's an Orthoceras I just got for the giveaway, so there is one in the giveaway. If you're on Facebook, go check those pictures out, amongst other crystals. But the Orthoceras came to me, and Morrigan was like, I heard this female insistence, like, do not leave this shop without that. And the next day I went through one of the most horrendous life experiences, not the most horrendous of my life, but a really horrible one, where I was stuck and not in a position to help my sister, and I was so stressed, so agitated, and I was holding on to that Orthoceras for dear life, and it spearheaded and it got me through. And it's to do with her. It's to do with this primal ancient energy. It's very spearheaded, it's very warlike in its appearance and energy, and it was just another hint. And there'd been a lot of those hints throughout my life. I'd always prayed to Mother, and so on and so forth. There's a whole video about how I knew it was the Morrigan, so I'm not going to go into that any more than that too much, and we will be dragging over old ground too much. But the whole point of this is it had been an ongoing thing which, although I hadn't been aware of, I had been watched and tested my entire life, and she brought up every painful memory before she basically accepted me. She basically had this interview process, so I didn't know I was being interviewed, and I didn't realise it was her because I thought it was a man. And honestly, you know, I thought it was a guy when she showed up and had a crow mask like over the face, and it sounded male. It was her. And basically my whole life had been building up to that point, so everything I had done and my reactions and the way I had behaved and my good points and my bad points, my failings and how I felt about them and how I'd overcome them and how I wanted to proceed to go forward, were all taken as part of the building of a relationship before I knew I had it. And therefore, once I knew I had the relationship and the bond to my matron, it became even more important to carry on building that relationship, to carry on honouring the ways of the Morrigan, to carry on giving her the respect and the building of relationship, which it became a point of honour and a point of duty and a point of love in building an ongoing relationship with deity, with the Morrigan. Now, how people affirm their relationship with their deity is a purely personal experience based on your thoughts and feelings and who your deity is. And it can range from daily things to weekly things to monthly things and so on and so forth. Some people will swear their allegiance to their deity. I don't know what you would probably call it. I mean, I call mine allegiance, so I'm not invocation. Dedication, that's the word. Some people will do their dedication and that will be it, and you know, that, or they might repeat it once a year. No, not for the Morrigan, ladies and gentlemen. I do mine twice a month. I do mine at the full moon and the new moon, the dark moon. The dark moon being the major one, and even sometimes I reaffirm it in a less formal fashion more regularly than that. I light incense for her every day, and other bits and pieces every day, so there's daily offerings and things, and I don't really feel comfortable in expressing all of my offerings and things that I do all the time for the Morrigan, because I understand that when people are getting into this, that's something they want to know, but I feel like I really want to avoid giving a sort of copy and paste idea for what you should be doing in order to be connecting with the goddess Morrigan in terms of offering. Because if she's called on you, then you'll know that she's called on you, and you'll have a strong feeling about what you should or should not be doing in terms of offering. But something I will... Excuse me, I'm gonna have to... Something I will mention that I think is pivotal in my practice is understanding that there isn't one way of being a follower of the goddess Morrigan. Poetry is something I very much enjoy, something that I find potent and powerful, and is very much tied to the goddess Morrigan in her role as prophetic poetress and sorceress. It's tied into a lot of her myth, and it's something which I do regularly in a number of ways. Sometimes it comes off the back of a meditation, and I have a feeling about something, and also I want to bring the Morrigan into a particular form of poetry that I want to used to embody the energy and the feeling of a particular circumstance or feeling or emotion within me, and that needs expressing, or it's some sort of poetry tied to some sort of magical work which has her flowing through it. And sometimes she just pops in my head and she's like, write this down. I'm like, I'm doing it, and then that's, you know, that happens as well. And there's been a lot of talk in a lot of places recently that somehow if you don't take part in a physical warrior training, then you're not a dedicated follower of the Morrigan. And I always get a little bit agitated when I see this, because I'm not in a position where I can afford full-on warrior training. I would love it. I mean, I would love to do kickboxing, for example. I would love to do archery. I'd love to do all, you know, sword fighting. I would love to be able to afford to go out and do that. Nowhere near here does it that I'm aware of. I've looked once or twice and I haven't found anything. And I don't really have the funds to. So I'm a bit like... Well, that being said, when I work out, I try and dedicate that to the Morrigan, and quite frequently when I'm on the cross trainer, the elliptical thing downstairs, I'll get images of running through the forest with the Morrigan and her familiars. So that can be used in a lot of ways to honour the Morrigan, like in your day-to-day life. That's some examples. And however, I think that we have to be careful and provide an element of respect in when we talk about what is appropriate for followers of the Morrigan or not. And I find it limiting to say that we can only build a relationship with the Morrigan if we are engaged in particular things. Now, let's face it, if you're engaged in 90% of the time, if you're engaged in those sort of physical things, they're a hobby. And that, you know, you're having classes and you do it once a week or twice a week or whatever, and you might be very into it, but at the end of the day, it's a hobby, and that's fine. That's all and good, but it's not your day-to-day life. You're not living a warrior lifestyle like the ancient Celts did. You're not training every single day, going out to war, going cattle raiding. The threat of your neighbours is imminent because they're going to come over and steal your cattle, and you have to be trained up and ready to fight them. That's not the world we live in anymore, unfortunately, and I think we have to be aware of that and provide a level of respect when we are building our relationship, respect the relationship of other people within Morrigan worship, or other deity worship really, but we're talking about the Morrigan for our purposes here. I understand the frustration of some people who basically feel that there are some out there who call themselves followers of the Morrigan and they don't take that relationship seriously, and they don't train, and they don't work at it, and they don't build the relationship. And they question people who are saying that they were followers of the Morrigan and they don't think they are. I try and stay away from that myself, because if I feel that someone isn't a follower of the Morrigan, I just leave it to the Morrigan to deal with, if she so wishes. You know, I mean, I've had people come to me and say, you know, I've had this person say they're a follower of the Morrigan and so they did this to me, and I at that point say that's not something that I believe a follower of the Morrigan would do. I don't think anybody who loved and respected the goddess Morrigan would ever use her name in order to abuse other people, basically, you know, take their money, use them for sex, that sort of thing. I've heard that once or twice, and it appalls me, because for me the Morrigan is about a life path of honour, and creating a conduct of honour is something that you may well come across in the ongoing process of your deity relationship. It's definitely been something that I've looked at time and time again, to, you know, what levels of behaviour are acceptable from me, from other people, my code of ethics, how I feel about them, what I'm flexible about, what I've learned about, what has grown, things that I'm quite rigid about, and then things that have shades of grey, for lack of expression. And that's something worth building into a relationship. And to be honest, if you can't be bothered to uphold very strict ethical guidelines and moral guidelines, then it becomes something that I would think falls into question whether or not building a relationship with a goddess such as Morrigan is for you. Because she's demanding in a lot of ways. And none of this is covered in tiny little articles that are like, call her up, get her to protect your home. It doesn't talk of respect, it doesn't talk of this relationship building. And it's a commitment. And even if you're working with the Morrigan in tangent, if she's shown up for a specific length of time because she's decided to help you out with a particular circumstance, which she does. I've heard of people having that experience where she shows up, she shows interest, and then she's gone again. Even that can be quite demanding on people's energy and time. Never mind a lifelong living commitment. And it's a living thing. It's a living commitment. It's the way you live. It's the way that you speak. It's the way that you craft your witchcraft, or whatever you slot into yourself, whichever way you live, however you express your spiritual medium. It's how, and that's a good point actually, and however you express your spiritual medium is very much an outward expression of who you are as a person, and therefore it becomes an outward expression of your relationship with your matron or patron, or both, deity. It becomes a representation of them because you are representing them on the earthly plane, basically. And it's work. Now, what kind of work? How does it work? Well, you should be constantly trying to improve everything you know. I still read books. I still buy and read other books concerning the Morrigan that other people have written, and they've brought the mythos into it, so I'm kind of going through old ground with the mythos and the legend and stuff. But I think it's important for me to do it. It's important for me to honour my goddess enough to revisit all of her myth. It's important for me and my goddess Morrigan, for me to go through the thoughts, feelings, ideas of other people who've articulated them, be they in books, be they online, be they blogs, vlogs, videos, whatever. I'm not always going to agree with everything everyone has to say about the goddess. Some things aren't going to resonate with me and aren't going to be appropriate in my experiences of the goddess, but I have to get to the point where I'm like, live and let live, which is very important, and I'm like that with a lot of things anyway. But certain things like irritate me and I need to speak out about them because I don't think it's a good idea for certain things to go completely without question, So I still buy books and I still read people's poetry and I still do all this, that and the other. I'm not above any of that, and no one should ever think that they are above or beyond the point where they revisit information. You can go back to the beginning of anything just to refresh your memory, because we're humans, our memory deteriorates as we get older, unfortunately. And going back and refreshing yourself is nothing to be ashamed of. Going back and rereading the myths and getting different things out of them is a worthwhile practice. We get rusty on things. It's who we are as, as humans. It's human fallibility, basically. And so I think it's important to go back and revisit and reread and keep doing that, and keep dedicating and keep offering and keep talking and speaking and living in the way that your god or goddess, in this case Morrigan, has laid out in front of you. And keep examining who your god or goddess is in terms of their role. This article also expressed something which always irritates me slightly, which is pigeonholing the Morrigan as a goddess of war and death. It's like, really? Really, after after everything, she is just this and just that. Oh, come on. I'm not going to do that because I will get a little bit agitated. But she's primal. And if I had to choose one element to her above all else, I'd choose shapeshifter, because she shifts between life, death and rebirth. She shifts between her energies and what she's doing, and roles of sexuality and death and maidenhood and prophecy and sorcery and all the rest of it. It becomes more than just these. Oh, it's just so. It feels close-minded to me to call her a goddess of. And I understand when you've got limited space, you might not want to be going into that. But if you don't want to be writing an essay on it, then maybe use a different goddess. Maybe don't use a goddess at all. Maybe just do a nice, practical house blessing and say, you know what, you can do this. You have the energy. You have the power. You have the ability, you have the power, you have the know-how, and if you don't, then you shouldn't be doing it. Or you should be researching how to do it, or you should be practicing how to do it. You should be learning, you should be believing in yourself, rather than dial a goddess, ask her to do it for you. Just a thought. I'm going to stop, because we've had way too much weirdness for one, for one video. Many blessings, guys.